Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Hello and welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast. I'm Will Stewart, joined as always by Chris Patton, CEO of His Way of Work. Hey, Chris.
Will, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. We're talking about a topic that we've been discussing throughout, kind of dripping it out through different episodes, and it's one that I think it just kind of hits to the heart of every common mistake that these business owners make. Yeah. We've been going through all 10 of them.
Yeah. So the only painful part of this, Will, is all of these mistakes are mistakes that I made. Right.
So, you and me both.
Well, and that is some relief is knowing that these are so common. And the more, this started as a list of things that I had done poorly in running the family business and trying to figure out ways to change that. But then as I talked to CEOs and I realized these are not my problems, these are everybody's, not everybody, but the vast majority run into at least a handful of these 10 issues and mistakes. And so I think it's a great thing that we're doing. I wish I could have heard this 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Right? It would have made a huge difference if I was listening.
Yeah. And it's all based on mindset, like getting your mindset right. If your mindset is in the right spot, you're thinking the right things and seeing the right problems, you'll be able to solve it.
That's a good point, because everyone has a different set of skills, a different set of abilities going into their role. Right. And in some cases, there are some things, for example, that I'm not skilled at. I don't have the ability. I don't have natural talent there. I'm just not going to be good at.
Yeah.
None of these rely on that.
It's true.
Fortunately, these are mistakes that are made that once we know it's a mistake and we can reframe it or change our perspective, well, then we can start operating in it the correct way.
Yeah.
It doesn't require a certain talent or ability. So that's a great point you bring up.
Yeah. So there's 10 common mistakes. We've dealt with 1 through 6, and now we're on the 7th one, which is believing that all of your employees see your vision.
Yes, right. So it's very easy as the business leader, whether you're leading a team, leading a department, leading a company, to think that, hey, I shared my vision with my team, with my company, and they get it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the guy that says, my wife wants to know if I love her all the time, and I told her at the wedding, why doesn't she remember, right?
Yeah.
As silly as that example is, we operate in that too often as business leaders, thinking, okay, I've shared my vision. We made a big deal about it. In our company, we launched our mission, purpose, and core values at a Christmas party. Huge event, big deal.
A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of intentionality.
We did a huge video project to get employees interviewed about it. We did, a ton of work. Within 3 months in the car business, we had turnover. Yeah. We had new people coming in, and I would make a comment about something related to core values or mission, and they looked at me like they didn't know what I was talking about because they didn't.
Yeah.
Because I'd done it once.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is making sure that you realize your employees don't always know your vision. They don't always get it. They don't always remember it. And there are several symptoms that I'd like to just touch on that effectively, if you are a business owner or leader and you see any of these things happening, then stop and take a look.
Yeah.
One, if you've never spent much time, or it's been a long time since you've spent time as an employee in your company, think about the success and the popularity of Undercover Boss.
Yeah.
Why that's such a big deal, because they get enlightened when they step into the shoes of their employee. And too often business owners and leaders, in some cases, they may have built the company, right? So they did every job along the way, but it may have been 10, 20 years ago since you've done it last. Yeah. If that's the case, likely you're going to have an issue here. The concept simply that vision leaks.
Yeah.
Bill Hybels had a book called Axiom, and in that were several leadership axioms that he went by, and vision leaks was one of them. He said, picture a bucket with holes in it. You've got to continue to fill it with water or it's just all going to leak out.
Yeah.
These employees walk around doing a job every day, and the vision you've poured into them, if you've done it well, still is going to leak out over time, even the best ones. Keep one thing in mind too. If you are a business owner or leader that often presents a new vision, right? I think back to the days in the car business, I would go off to what we called a 20 group meeting of other dealers and get best practices and ideas. And I'd come back from these meetings 3 times a year and employees would scatter because they knew I was coming in with this new idea that was the greatest because I was so fired up about it. And they, in their heads, they're thinking, we hadn't even had time to get through with what you gave us 3 or 4 months ago, much less the one before that or the one before that. So if that's a pattern of yours, then most likely your employees don't know where you are today, or they've just stopped listening altogether.
And there's a lot of business leaders who are kind of naturally have that high energy, really visionary kind of personality. And that's naturally you, a kind of person that's just like, oh, this is something cool. We should really do this. This is great. It's good to do that with a lot of things. It's good to innovate. It's good to always be willing to see what's the new thing for your company. But man, to do it with your vision, it's kind of risky.
It's very risky, and it can create a lot of problems.
Yeah.
If another example would be a symptom where you've shared your vision, but you've never really poured your heart out to your company. One of the things that we encourage with the businesses we work with at His Way at Work is for the CEO to take his or her heart and pour it out to the employees. That might or might not, but it might include their testimony, but it usually includes some personal reason that they feel God has put this vision on their heart, right? Yeah. That connects with people. Just putting it on a billboard or putting it around the company on posters doesn't really connect. But when there's a personal story behind it, then it can make a big deal.
And people will never be more excited about the vision than you are.
That's right.
And they'll and they're going to be as equal to you, but probably never, but some degree less.
That's right. Going through personality profile training, you learn that each person is wired differently and sees the world differently. And suddenly, when you get that training and you see these different profiles and how they behave, you realize the world doesn't see things the way I do.
Right.
Now, that sounds goofy, but people really assume you see things the same way I do until you and I have a conversation.
Right.
And then I realize, whoa, I'm way out over here in left field and you're over there on first base. So assuming that our employees all hear and think and see our vision the same way is a big mistake. And it's a problem because these employees are not us. They haven't lived through the things we've lived through. They don't have the same challenges, the same education or upbringing or whatever. We all come from different backgrounds and so forth. And to assume they see things the way we do is just going to cause vision confusion, right?
So why are all these things a problem? When you look at it in your business and you see there's some disconnects, why is it an issue that all the employees aren't seeing the vision? Well,
so if you don't have them all, a vision basically is a destination that you're looking for, right? Yeah. It's where you're headed. Your mission is what you're doing, but the vision idea is where are we going? And if your employees are looking in a total, complete, infinite number of different directions, some are pulling against others, right? These 3 over here are pulling against these 4 over here. They're not all pulling in the same direction. If we can get everybody going in the same direction, as a business, as an organization, any team, then we're going to have success in far greater measure, right? Yeah. And then you think about some that are pulling in different directions, but you also have employees that if they hear the shiny new object, right, every 3 to 4 months, he or she's coming out with a new idea, or it just doesn't connect with me. They've put it on the posters, but I don't get it. So I'm going to disengage.
Yeah.
They show up for work every day. They do parts of their job and they do it somewhat well, or maybe not. Yeah. They don't engage. They don't give their discretionary effort and intellect. And they lose fulfillment and enjoyment in their job. We lose productivity and success as a team when everybody doesn't get the vision and go in the same direction.
And you probably have people cherry picking, what's my favorite thing to do? What's the most naturally I'm inclined to do this type of a vision, this part of the values, whatever. And they'll just, pull in the wrong direction.
Yeah. So it's a problem. So here's what we've got to do as business leaders, business owners, is we've got to communicate the vision, which we've probably already done. Yeah. We have to then communicate it again. Yeah. Then we have to communicate it again, rinse, lather, repeat.
Yeah.
And about the time we're starting to get so tired of it, we're just getting started.
It's true.
And these employees, number one, you're going to have turnover, new people coming on board. They may be hearing it for the first time, and you've been talking about it for 2 years. Well, you can't just stop after 2 years and say, gosh, by now everybody should get it.
Yeah.
No, it's constant. That is your job as leader. Cast the vision. Cast the vision. If you get tired of one particular way of doing it, vary it. Get creative in your presentation, right? Make sure that you think about, so for example, my wife was a school teacher, and there are various different ways that children learn. Some learn by observing, some learn by reading, some need to have their hands on it, right? Well, they grow up to be employees and adults. Most grow up, right? And we need to understand they learn, they grasp, they retain things differently. So we need to present in different ways. Always, as a leader, be thinking, how do I tie what we're doing today to our vision or to our core values? Continue to make connections so that everybody on the team says, man, that I can identify with. That aligns with what I believe. And then I'm on team. And
something his way of work does really well that I when we were talking to some of the CEOs years ago, when we were interviewing, talking to them, they were talking about how, there's your values. And then there's also, what does that value mean to me as a forklift driver? What does it mean to me as in my role? Yes. And so as people, they may have done that exercise in a role, then they get promoted and they have a different role. They're doing a different thing.
Yeah,
well, they need to be reminded this is how it connects.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You can't say it too much.
No, you can't. You can't. You can, if you think you're just repeating yourself over and over, maybe your delivery method could be varied, right? That's what we're saying there. But don't ever stop casting that vision. And over time, you will, one of the other suggestions we make is find the influencers in your company. Yeah. These may or may not be leaders at positional leadership levels, but they are the people on the floor. They're the people in the shop or in the office that the others watch and listen to. They're an influencer. Find those individuals. Get them bought into the vision and the values. Yeah. And they will then help multiply and replicate that throughout the organization.
Yeah. And if you're trying to communicate your vision and people aren't getting it, it's probably not a them problem. It's probably a you problem, right? I mean,
man, you're hitting hard. I find that a lot.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated. I find myself getting frustrated trying to communicate a concept that is so obvious and clear.
Yeah.
And yet if it was as obvious and clear as I thought, then the person sitting across from me would just get it like that.
Yeah.
And the problem is either it's not clear and obvious or I'm not making it so.
Yep.
And it's on me as the one communicating the idea, not on them because they're just slow and they don't get it. Because most of the time it's not their lack of ability. It's just, I just have not been able to find the right words yet.
Right.
And that goes back to, getting in the shoes of your employees, learning their language, trying to speak their language. Don't expect them to learn yours, right? Just different ways that you can make that work.
Yeah. And they need to know, what it means for them. That's an important part of it. It's like, how do you relate this to their job and getting into their shoes, like you said, will help communicate all that.
Yeah. And one other thing too, before we move on to the next one, is make sure that as you're communicating your vision, that you reinforce it with policies and procedures and systems, right? So in other words, in the car business, it would be unfair and completely unproductive for me to say, this is our vision, but I'm going to pay you this way. We're going in that direction, but your pay is going to incentivize you to go in that direction.
Yeah.
That does not work.
No.
And too often we stick with old compensation mindsets or even, benefits or other policies and procedures because we've always had them. And why should we have to go change those just because we're changing the vision? Well, because it all has to align, right?
And if you ask an employee, what does the company really believe? They're not going to point to the vision. They're going to point to the policies.
No.
And that's what dictates how they're going to act.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Man, all of this is super challenging. Number 8 is you're doing all of the ministry yourself. That's a big one.
That is a big one. And each of these 10 are big ones, right? So not to minimize any of them, but it is so often that we talk to CEOs, business owners, leaders, that they believe their role is to run a business or to operate in business, but they feel God is putting something on their heart. They want to do more, and they don't think you can put the two together. And we'll talk about that next episode. Yeah. But the end result of that is they take it all on themselves. I did this. I for literally 15 years, I am in this business trying to drive, in our family business, a ministry mindset through the business. But I never let go of it and handed it off or empowered others or delegated any. I thought, frankly, I didn't think about it this way, but from the outside in, it looked like a holy hobby. Yeah. Right? It looked like this is something that I feel is on me, so I'm going to do it. And there are so many problems with that, which we'll talk about. But it's coming from a place of good intention. Oh, yeah. Right? In most cases. And I'm sure there's an outlier somewhere that says, hey, I want to be seen by all, and I want to put myself out there by myself and all alone in the spotlight. Sure, there may be somebody like that. But for the most part, there are better ways to do that than ministry in a business. Right? Yeah. So most of the time we run into these leaders that say, you know what, I've been doing this. I'm doing it all by myself. And initially I thought that was good. Now I know it's a problem, but I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure how to correct it, right? Some symptoms of this. So one, if you're doing ministry and you're just worn out, you're burned out, possibly even getting frustrated at the work you're doing. Yeah. Because you realize you're the only one doing it, and you're looking at the people around you that may also be believers, may also be maybe in a small group with you. Yeah. And yet when they're at work, they're not engaging with you in this work. Well, we'll talk about in a minute. Most likely it's because you've been holding it yourself. You've not given them permission, right? But if you're worn out, you're burned out. If you're angry at those that should have that same vision but don't. Also, another symptom of this is when you turn away from thinking about ministry in your business and you focus on something else. For me, 08, 09, 2008, 2009, the economy went in the tank. And I'm just trying to figure out how to survive through to make it to 2010. I've got a third generation family business, and statistically, I'm the one that's supposed to blow it up, right? And I'm trying to make sure I don't. Yeah. So I turned my focus to survival. Yeah. So our ministry efforts went to a very low level because I did not have time to drive it. Yeah. At the very same time, the needs of the employees spiked, went through the roof. So any system where your supply goes to near nothing, your demand goes through the roof, that's a broken system. So broken. No system at all, right, in our case. So it was because I was trying to do it all myself, and that was a huge red flag. Here's one that sneaks in on just about all of these problems, but it is pride. I got to admit, there was some part of me during that time period I didn't even recognize at the time that was proud of the work I was doing and felt I should kind of martyred or, I was suffering for the cause by doing all this. And in fact, I was really just inhibiting the growth of it and so forth. So it's a challenge there.
Yeah, it really is. And God doesn't want us to be burned out. Like He doesn't call us. His burden is easy. And there's hard work in the ministry. It's not like it's going to be all easy.
That's right.
But He doesn't call us to be burned out.
That's right.
And there's times of rest, and there's a way to do it in a way that can honor and glorify Him, can complete the mission that He's called us to do without ever burning out. That's right. And I've heard people say, "Well, I'd rather burn out than rest out." Well, there is a third option, and that is
you don't have to choose between those two.
Right,
That's
choose
right.
two horrible options, and He wants the work to be consistent. And to be so. That's the symptoms. Why is this a problem? Why not just do it? I mean, you kind of hit on a little bit of that.
I hit on some of it. So number one, if you're doing it by yourself, you're not doing near enough. Yeah. There's more that can be done. The need is infinite, right? The need is infinite. And if we try to attack an infinite need just by ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. And we're being selfish when we do this. We're holding on to what could be benefiting others, not just the ones being cared for, but the ones doing the caring. Bible says it's more blessed to give than receive. It's better for us when we give than when we receive. Yeah. So I'm withholding from others. That's a problem, right? Yeah. I've been put in a position of leadership to multiply disciples to multiply caring and God's kingdom, and yet I'm holding it into this narrow box that's my ability to work, and that's just a problem.
Yeah.
The other thing is, as we mentioned, you start having burnout and exhaustion, your attitude gets sideways. Who wants to be cared for by a guy that's just sour, right? Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm doing this for you, right?
I'm loving you.
Yeah, I'm loving you. I hope you get it.
Do you feel loved?
Tell me thank you, right? So your attitude starts to sour, and even the work you are doing is not effective.
No.
Right? And that's a problem.
People feel your heart. They don't care like about the groceries in a cardboard box. I mean, like those do, I mean, physical needs do matter, but like if you're doing it with an attitude, my goodness.
Yeah, there's harmful charity, right? And that's part of it. So something else I touched on, but just to emphasize, your employees, your leaders, those in your company that could be doing some of this with you and would, if given the opportunity and shown how, they can grow and develop as a result. God is working in them too.
Yeah.
And they could have more fulfillment, more opportunity, more joy, better relationships because they're doing these things, but you're not giving them that opportunity. So you're withholding from them. And then, if you mention pride, anytime there's pride, it's a problem. There's never been a situation where, man, thank goodness pride was there, right? It's a problem. So if you see it, it's a problem you've got to address.
Absolutely. And our businesses are made up of systems, and they're made up of people that are incredibly talented and usually specialized in a certain role, and they're filling that role to max capacity. Why not create a ministry and a structure where you can roll up your sleeves alongside your team, just like you do with everything else.
That's right.
And make a company that has a ministry, not just a holy hobby that's
right.
there on the side. So what should people do? How do you get into getting everything aligned?
So first is, if there's pride, we'll just knock that one out.
Yeah.
If there's pride, get rid of it.
Yeah.
That sounds simple. But if you've got pride in this, confess it, pray through it, get accountability. Even if it's outside your business, find peers that will hold you accountable and call you out when they sniff it and give them permission to do so. That's an individual thing, but that's a big deal. So for the employees, you're casting the vision, as we just discussed in the last problem. Give them opportunities. Ask for volunteers. Give them opportunities to step in and be a part of what you're doing. Give them decision-making authority. One of the things we do at His Way at Work is we create a caring team out of the entry-level employees. They are given a budget by ownership, and they are given decision-making authority on that to love and care for their fellow employees and family members with that budget.
Wow.
What we're doing in that is, through this operating system, we're giving the entry-level employees authority, empowerment. We're enlisting them in the cause. We're not telling them, go grab your bullhorn and go preach on the corner, to all the employees. We're saying, just love on them and use these funds to come up with creative ways to do that.
Yeah.
And so ministry in the business is not always, well, we're leading a Bible study and we've had 10 salvations. Yes, those are your eventual goals, right? You want to point people to a relationship with God. But ministry is what you saw Jesus doing. It is caring for, loving on, being with people in a time of need. He asks the sheep and the goat, when were you, did you visit me in prison?
Yeah.
When I was sick, when did you come and care for me? When did you give me water when I was thirsty? Those are the things that we should be doing with our employees and their families, and then through them out into the community as we've taken care of them. So enlisting them is one of the ways, but also make sure you build your vision and this whole concept into your KPIs, how you're running the business. Not to say how many conversions did you have last week, right, to a sales guy, unless you're selling, right? Yeah. But build in factors like employee survey metrics, build in metrics that are lagging indicators of care that's been given, and make that a part of your overall KPI program for your company, and align that with your vision and your compensation. And then the same with policies and procedures.
Yeah. And I think people will find that there's a lot of people in the company who want to help.
Oh,
and there's a lot of people with servants' hearts, and incredible ideas. We've
got a company locally that does a mission trip once a year. They pay for employees and their families, subsidize the families, to go and do mission work in foreign country. And in that company is a substantial Buddhist population of employees. And the Buddhist leadership, one of the priests in that leadership, went on this Christian mission trip with this company because they aligned with the goals.
Yeah.
They said, we believe different things, but I can align with loving on and caring for people that are in need and are less fortunate. So I'm in. So it doesn't always mean that we're creating this crusade within our company.
Yeah.
It means we are reaching out and doing what the greatest commandment said, love God and love others as ourselves.
Yeah. And it's that whole relational missions where as you're building relationships with people, you're drawing them closer to yourself and to God.
That's right.
And that's what Jesus did, and he got 12 disciples, and then they went out and made disciples, and it's cascaded from there. So why not do it the way Jesus did it?
I think that's the best way.
That's right.
For sure.
Well, these were great. Really excited about digging into the next ones. So next episode, we'll hit 9 and 10 and finish this up. But a great discussion and something I think all of us can take to heart and see where the problems are in our company and how we can fix it.
Yeah. Hey, the good news is I'm continuing to make mistakes. So we may come out with another 10 next month.
I might have a few to add to that list.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Eternal ROI. If you like what you heard, we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review and share an episode with somebody you know. If you are inspired to begin bringing the power of God's love into your workplace, take a moment and check out our free assessment at hwaw.com. It'll only take you a few moments. It'll give you a snapshot of what your company looks like and maybe some ways to move forward. Just click on the link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.